I'm Sandra Mead. I teach poetry in the creative writing program here. And I want to welcome you to the 26th annual senior reading. This is our chance to celebrate our fabulous creative writing students one last time before they leave us. And we have a really incredible group to hear from tonight. So the three of us in the creative writing faculty, Dr. Sam Edmonds, Dr. Clint Peters, and I will be introducing the readers. But I want to say some of these have been written by the writers, but some seem to have been ghostwritten by other people. So the tone may vary bio to bio. Our first reader is Cole Alexander. Cole is a senior creative writing major from Virginia who has been at Barry for 2 years after journeying through many different colleges and major changes. His claim to fame is his totally normal dude life with totally normal dude stories. Cole helps with bad movie nights and Barry Dismembered as a decoration. Watch who you hire for your ghostwriter.
He agreed to this.
He also volunteers with Ramifications as an office menace and works as a research assistant for Dr. Peters. No comment. After graduation, he plans to pursue an MFA and eventually a PhD with the goal of becoming a professor of creative writing. He's also passionate about traveling and photography and hopes to lead study abroad trips as a professor. Please welcome Cole.
All right, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I did submit my own introduction, and the other goes, "It's going to be funny, right?" And so I was like, "Oh, okay." And so thank you so much for being my ghostwriter on this. I'm going to read a couple excerpts because I didn't have anything that was like short. So this is from a larger piece called Tasting Menu, where each vignette is like a portion of this chef's life. So this is course 4. It's called Vanilla or Smoked Duck served with rosemary, polenta, and roasted carrots. Most things are uninspired. The vibrancy of a color doesn't dictate its beauty. Sometimes a meal is a meal. Vanilla is a necessary flavor. What I mean is that life should not be forced to change itself for your lack of patience. When we prepare meals, we often use bread to bookend flavor, crackers to carry flavor up in their backs, and rice to soak and sop up the flavor so that it becomes more subtle and tolerable. I sleep around the same time most nights. I watch television shows slowly, one every other night. I walk my dogs every morning at 9 o'clock. I am no longer a young chef who fights hurricanes for inspiration. I pay my taxes. I drive the same route to work nearly every day because I appreciate its consistency. I look at green yards, well-trimmed and dressed moderately, and I nod my head and purse my lips and approval. I read the paper. I'll scroll through articles on my phone. Well, I read the highlights and the headlines nearly every day. I form opinions on things like HOAs and washing machines. Samsung is probably my favorite. Well, maybe Maytag. I look forward to jury duty. One day for a free meal at a Mexican restaurant beside the courthouse. I drink decaf coffee when it's late. I play golf on the weekends with my doctor, whom I visit often for sprains and strains I got from sleeping with the wrong girl. I have recently wondered if I should collect stamps, or maybe build model ships and bottles. I want to study. I don't study. I want one so that I can say that I have one. I have no idea what to do in a study. But when friends of mine, my doctor, shows me his, tucked away between the bathroom and the kitchen, previously his kid's bedroom, who left for college 3 years ago, I'm not alone. I dream of having my own. So I can invite my doctor over to see mine, and see him not alone. The other day, I spent 3 hours on a Saturday morning watching a 2-part Civil War documentary. I drink Pepto before my whiskeys. I don't like bars. Bars are loud and smell like desperation and hormones. There are bars for people like me, quiet ones with big TVs that show 2 different news channels, and the only sports on are ones where people sit, like NASCAR. I brought an umbrella the other day. I have 2 others, just like this one. The hand grip felt more comfortable than the one I have. I shop for flashlights based on the lumens, and I recommend hotels to people I am meeting for the first time. Often these people seek me out to talk about other things, chaotic things, the food on menus I made years ago. They tell me how beautiful the plates look and how amazed they are that every bite requires effort. Compliments are made to the wrong chef. They look at me and they see the hurricanes. They want to see me this way. A mad scientist plagued on my genius. They like the way foreign ingredients sound in their mouths. I just smile with my mouth instead of my eyes. This last month, I added smoked duck to the menu. Served beside it are rosemary polenta and whole roasted carrots. They are sensibly sat upon each other on the plate. When I look out over the dining room, I can spot the people who order it before they realize they're going to. They walk in the restaurant with sensible shoes, classy but comfortable. They talk about portfolios. They complain about how long it took to park. They order a glass of wine that they had that one time at that one restaurant, and they fall asleep in movie theaters. They talk politics, loud and unyielding, and we're no longer who we used to be. We once skinny dipped on Italian beaches, now we wear sun hats in Florida. Meat and starch, or smooth, vanilla, every flavor is perfect but contained. There isn't a meaning in the arrangement of sauce droplets. It tastes like chimney smoke. You are not consumed by the mouthfeel to stone ground grains and earth. Each bite takes you home. Not the home you want yours to be, but the home it is. The next one is actually like a self-contained poem. It's called My Father's John Wayne. I've read this one a couple times, but I read this in like my first semester, so I thought I'd include it on my class a little bit. So it's called My Father's John Wayne, or as any Western movie icon with a name. My father riding a long horse named Lucky, or a Petunia. My father with a hand-rolled cigarette. My father asking if they feel lucky punk. My father with a warrant for his arrest in 3 states. My father with whiskey breath and a heavy right fist. My father telling the lawmen they better have reason for calling on him at this hour. My father carrying a gun shoved in his pants. My father sorting lines of powder I straightened under his shaking hand. My father riding a motorcycle until it died under the shade of a desert tree. My father shooting a man in Mexico after a bar fight. My father always kissing the damsel in distress. My father telling me to trust no one as far as the barrel goes. My father being hunted over state lines. My father shooting targets in our backyard so he stays ready with a full hand. My father sitting by a campfire regaling about romantic stories. My father waking at dawn to find the man who wronged him. My father knocking out a drunkard in traffic. My father carrying his father's name on his back like a prize. My father paying with banknotes. My father lying to the lawman with a gun. My father on the wrong side of the law but the right side of heaven. My father chasing the night lights. My father with a Stetson. My father dying young, unable to squeeze the rusty trigger before death in the black poncho. My father leaving me with nothing but his cowboy hat and sordid web of identities. My father leaving his name to speak tall honors and unspeakable secrets. Sorry, it's a little hot up here. So this is also another excerpt. This is from something I wrote this semester. It's about this confusing morality person who meets the girl they love. Sort of complicated. So this is an excerpt from Confession. I met Delilah in New Orleans. She sold soybeans out along the docks at the morning markets. Nights she danced with strangers at jazz clubs, sometimes going back to their place if they had a heavy wallet and a good and full home with Amish and French furniture that smelled like Latinx. She was considered by most to be a vagabond, tramping about the city and sleeping with whoever made the night seem bright and the air sweet. We spent many nights together, dancing and loving each other until we ran ourselves ragged and one of us left. She never told me about her family, seeing as she only spoke French and I refused to learn it. I could never respect the language when its people were so mean to me. But for her, given more time, I might have done it, just to see her gap-toothed smile. Delilah was beautiful the way gators are beautiful, sharp and wicked, alluring eyes that draw you in but haunt you far into the night when you're not ready for them. She wasn't for most people, I assume, but she was for me. She wasn't meant to live a long life, and when I took it from her, I think the world rebalanced itself. Humanity had shed itself free from another virus, someone infecting others with ideas of freedom and violence. She was not afraid of violence. It seemed to hang around her. On days we were together, the sky seemed to crack open and pour itself out over the city, bloating the bay and drowning the streets. We would rush into jazz clubs, and she would dance on tables and whisper beautiful things in strangers' ears that'd fight me for her love. We doped up together and ran among the city, kicking over trash cans while the beat of the trumpet music bounced about our brain. Ultimately, it was this that was her undoing, the dope and our time shielded by it. It was sunrise when I realized she was gone, done in by the heavy dose my hands gave her. Her lips were blue like the bay, and her eyes were yellow and green like a gator's. She smiled like lilac and she smelled like lilac and jazz music, and for the first time in my life, I understood martyrdom. She died how Bud wanted to die. A sacrifice for us all, a rebalancing of the forces that drove us. She was too wild for the planets took her back through my hands. I slipped her body into a sundress I stole hanging street side on a clothesline near the docks and pushed her out to sea in an old crowder's boat. I left that night on a cruiser floating up the Mississippi after I traded employment for the dope I had left. I worked the engine room with 3 Frenchmen and detoxed for 3 weeks when our first tour lasted. The only saint ever killed, this is transitioning to another person, same story. The only saint I ever killed was a holy man northeast of the Texas line who begged me for death after his little boy toddled off face first into a well. I wept as I killed him, 2 bullets into the temple. I met him a few months after my stint as a riverman. My legs had grown too accustomed to the shifting of the river wake, and I had lost my love for the Mississippi. I wrestled about the Midwest, contracting odd jobs for odd people with sweet corn-fed Midwest mouths and Midwest overalls. This period was mostly long fields and fresh dairy and sunsets over flower fields. My direction was southwest, toward the Rio Grande. In the morning after I finished work for a horse breeder in Oklahoma, I caught a train to San Antonio. In a cafe cab, he sat in my booth and poured his woes into me while we sat peering at his tomato soup in my baking club. He told me that he lost God out there somewhere in the plains after his son drowned. He told me he had bargained a spot in heaven for an early release from this plane of existence. He told me that he had looked into contract killers, but the price was too steep for a man who made his wages from an offering plate passed around to 3 farmers and the train clerk. After we were done picking out our meals, I told him I'd do it. This would help me sleep at night. The killing was ordained. We got off the train in a little Oklahoma town a few miles away from anything at all. We got us a room in a nice hotel with a view of the grasslands and little patio one man who sucked at his good could stand on. We ate a steak dinner, but his was well done, mine was rare, and we sat there talking about fly fishing and how I'd never been, but his father was a well-awarded fisherman. He laughed, we drank, and the 2 other couples in the restaurant stared us down until we scraped the last bit of food off our plates. We walked across the road back to the motel, up the stairs because the elevator was out, and into the room. He jumps in the shower while I sat on the bed and stared at the gun he put on the nightstand between our 2 beds. He snored that night, and I never dozed off. I thought about balance. We rose early before the sun and walked out into the tall grass. The sky above us held a bit of fog over our heads. We spoke about his son and his wife that died of something rapturous and stealthy. And when we reached the spot we knew was coming, he stopped and dropped to his knees, taking bunches of grass up in his hands for support. For him it was quick. I took it all away from him before he could speak about it, and questioned the timing of the doctrines he followed. He sank into the field and laid there quite abnormal, as if asleep for the first time. It was ordained. I have 2 quick little ones. So this one's like a flash fiction piece. It's on Sarah Farwell. Her dress was green with marigolds, and his shirt was halfway tucked and wrinkled. They sat street side on cafe benches 2 kilometers away from the loop. She drank something white and dry and fruity, and he drank something red with earthy notes, and they picked at each other's food and watched the city move around them. Bikes cycled by, car sounds rattled the window frames beside them. Voices from a million apartments echoed down alleyways. Silverware clinked to plates on tables around the city. Pigeons cooed and clawed at bits of cigarette butts tossed on the cobble. But he was deaf to everything except the sounds of paintbrushes on canvas, painting every detail of her face. And this is another excerpt, sorry for so many excerpts. But this is the end of a story where somebody meets all these people in his apartment growing up, and then he realized that he became those people. So this is the culmination of everything. My apartment is leather and wood and rugs that sometimes smell like sun, and I have paintings along my hallways with twisted faces, and bookshelves hug my walls. I'm in a band now that only practices, and sometimes I watch Family Guy and monster movies and space shows and keep dead plants and pots around my apartment. On Saturdays, I take ceramics, and on Monday mornings, I go to spin class. On Friday nights, I play poker with my friends I met from places I shouldn't have been, and sometimes when people ask me what I do, I make up fantastical stories. There's a hole in my kitchen wall, and I framed it, stuck a little note with a quippy phrase as its title. I met a girl with constellation freckles who never wears her hair down, and when the first autumn breeze sneaks in, she wears funky, chunky sweatshirts. She reads good books, and she keeps good books she keeps in the back seat of her car, and does Sudoku when she's stressed. Sometimes we cook spaghetti when we feel good. We painted the walls green like my mother's eyes, and I smile a liar smile that keeps me human. I think this is the last one, yeah. So this one is called On My Father, Part 1. It's also a little flash fiction piece. I mostly remember the wriggling of its body while I dug the fish hook out of its mouth. Its eyes were crystalline mirrors, and when I looked at them, I could only see my own staring back. Dad took it and smiled. He threw it in a bucket with the 2 fish he caught earlier that morning. He stood up, grabbed the bucket, and I grabbed our fishing poles. We stood at the back gate of his truck as he slid over a cutting board and took the knife out of its holster on his belt. He smacked my shoulder and told me to pay attention because he was only going to show me once, and then I would have to do my own. He made short work of his. I watched every detail, like the way his index finger worked the blade from the dull edge, and the way he severed the head and flung it into the trash bucket beside the truck. The way he split the fish down the middle and carved out its innards and flung them too, and the way that he slipped the knife down the spine and filleted out the meat. He threw the fillets in his Ziploc baggie with olive oil, 2 half lemons, and some Old Bay. He grabbed my fish with the mirror eyes from the bucket and dropped it on the cutting board. He handed me his knife, and he walked to the river to wash his hands off. I held the knife like he did. I held the knife at the edge of the fish's head, and I went to cut and heard the crunch of its scales and the jolts of the muscle twitch in its fins. I dropped the knife, and I took a step back from the truck bed. Dad came up behind me and clapped me in the back, and he told me to get back in there. This is how you become a man, he said. And when I looked up at him, I only saw his eyes, and how they weren't as human as the fish's. Go on, he said. Do you want dinner? He asked. I remember my stomach rumbling and wondered if this was really the only way I would eat tonight. I crept back up to the truck bed and grabbed the knife the way that he did, placed the knife as he did, closed my eyes, and pictured my dad's eyes. We did it that night.
Michael Berry. In 2002, 7 sages gathered at the lowest point of Lake Michigan to proclaim the birth of a child that would change the course of the world. This child was predicted to come 10 days after the new year. They were off by about a month. Michael Berry is a Chicago native who began his transition to Southern living when his family realized that the cold was entirely not made for them. A legend who learned the rules of the English language from trading cards and horribly translated manga. Oh my God. He is the final arbiter of all things fantasy and a bit of a gym bro. Please welcome Michael.
So real quick, before I stare down at my phone for the next 5 minutes and not look at anyone, for the last 4 years, I have had a bit of a running joke where every time I need to introduce myself to someone new, I will go through an entire spiel. I feel that it is only right to let that be part of it. And one last time, greet old friends and new as a sort of goodbye. So, Hello everyone, my name is Michael Berry, that's Berry with an E. That means for the last 4 years, I have owned this school and their lives. Their tuition has been going directly into my pocket and they have not been seeing a cent. I did not use it to build the dorms, I did not use it to fix the parking situation. I did, however, use their tuition money to pay for our glorious President Briggs' 36th trip to the Bahamas for the last 4 years. All right, and now I suppose I will simply read, yeah, we'll go with my little short story that's in the chat book, Pyroclasm. My Stingray skids to a stop in a smoking heap just at the bottom of a cliff, the metal scraped and torn to crimson ribbons after tumbling like a Corvette-branded boulder for a few dozen feet. I hang upside down in the driver's seat, somehow still gripping the wheel in midair after it had been snapped off its axis like the bones of a baby bird that left the nest a little too early. Like my bones should have been, but instead I'm hanging, whole and unbroken, though cut open, a leaky wound above my eyebrow sends crimson rain down past the crown of my head towards the searing metal beneath. I can smell the iron and wisps of steam rising to become stardust for the universe dancing in my eyes. I sit there in a daze, replaying the last 30 seconds for what feels like 30 years, the fireball with 18 wheels that suddenly jerked into my lane, the driver screams inaudible as his beard hair singed. Maybe he was on his way to make a delivery at Kroger or Whole Foods before his truck caught fire and he ran me off the side of a mountain. Maybe he was just running too, but in the opposite and equally doomed direction. The sound of distant sirens blaring eventually brings me out of it. I haven't moved, haven't so much as relaxed a muscle despite willing the change for so long. I am just here, upside down in my wreck of a car, gripping the wheel. My limbs aren't listening to a single command, but I'm oddly comfortable. It's warm here. Granted, warm was default in California, but this is an odd, localized warmth running from my temple to my left shoulder being devoured by flames. Now, I can't tell if it's because I'm upside down or if blood loss is starting to work its magic, but either way, I'm certain I'm seeing things. Because fire is supposed to hurt, and people are supposed to panic when their things are burning, but here I am, sitting calm in a morning Corvette. The Corvette is burning. An electrical engine is burning. Crackle, crackle, boom. Flames erupt from the hood, pushing into the chassis and sending shards of glass on a straight shot to my face. Funny thing is though, the glass never makes it. I see it all explode away from me before I get so much as a scratch. It's just like that. Glass one instant, empty air the next. The first blast somehow canceled out by a second and I'm left there effectively blind and deaf, but somehow I'm not dizzy anymore. I blink myself back to focus in a small blackened crater, the corpses of my car and the surrounding shrubs all uniformly charred to perfection on whichever side was facing me. I can see everything so clearly. My suit is alight, the edge is roasting, curling away from hands brighter than a lit barrel of kerosene. It's mystifying to watch. It's euphoric. I can't feel the heat, but I feel unstoppable. There's a brief moment of wonder there, a moment of why am I still breathing, but then I rise to my feet and the sky grants me clarity. The skies were already turning hours before, but something had changed, giving way to a swirling storm of embers and ash falling from an angry sky like blazing spittle from the maw of a beast whose innards glow in a slowly darkening bronze. This sky looks like it was just about ready to swallow the world whole, and I take this as a go-ahead from the universe to feed the last of humanity into its flames. I run from the pit, harder and faster than I ever had before. The world is melting around me, and if I stop, the hail of ash will bury me like that car crash should have, like the explosion should have, like the burns I was racking up undoubtedly would, but I'm not hurting. I realize I'm not hurting anymore despite running through an active wildfire. I didn't feel close to tired. In this moment, I could carry torchlight in a sprint across the entire state. Wildfire, all-powerful, all-consuming, and the means to my end. The thoughts carry a sort of lucidity with them, and for the first time since the accident, I really take in what's happening around me. Taking all the trees dyed in fall colors well before the season, the grass beneath my feet covered in black and white, ash charred and self-replicating, In this hellscape, I am home, breathing smoke better than the purest of air, and fires raging around me, passing over like a breeze. It is ecstasy. I'm gliding like an X-Man possessed now. Though I can't see more than 3 feet ahead of me, I can vaguely follow the sound of the sirens, trying their hardest to drown out my inferno sympathy. People with their sirens and their hoses, so desperate to stop the burn, but I wasn't ready to let my flame be put down. The waist-high piles of burnt material I fly, the waste seeming to take on a life all its own as the steadily worsening winds scatter the ash and heat even more. Eventually, I come to the base of a hill with the red-hot concrete barriers of a highway peeking just over the top, haloed by a set of muted lights alternating red and blue. The silt begins to smoke and sizzle as I dig into it, clawing my way up the hill with my bare hands. Their water is up there, and their water is worth my life. But the only thing waiting up top to greet me at this final sight was a dead sea. Cars clogging the road in either direction, losing their way in the haze of smoke and mirage lines. I can't see the drivers past the debris in their windshields, but I can tell that there's nothing of theirs left for me to take and burn. So after all that, I just sit. A lone supernova shining on an eclipsed highway, sinking into the asphalt. I sit and lean my burning back into a sign just off the shoulder. My sign, lowly and now slowly melting, reads, "Welcome to Paradise." Just enough time for me to read it. Fata Morgana. All right, a little poem that I just threw together one day for the class. Most of these guys have read it. Little low life, cling to shade, stay low, swift-footed, slight-handed, a roach's mimic, scattering once the sun scales the horizon line. Be just what they call you, and scurry away, little wharf rat. Be distant for your own good. Once skittering insect on the wall, so fragile at a touch you dissolve, then mocking galleons abound, bobbing over shifting vistas, now you eye the crew. A gull watching their catch, hoping for an opening and something to snatch, hoping they can't see you floating in the periphery, hoping that the fishmongers barely think you real. You are nothing now, less than nothing, stray drag dancing on a beam of light, dust to be removed after one layer too many settles on a book, unread after years, in a corner unused after years, the space unfilled but swept still to remove unsightly dirt. So flit in and out, little beggar, stay just beyond reach, disappear before the brooms and the crews and the ships close in and you become impermanent.
Grace Lawrence. That's the whole bio. Grace is a creative writing major with a concentration in fiction. Her plans for post-graduation include catching up on 4 years worth of sleep, playing Sims to her heart's content, and sneaking and traveling plans here and there to visit all of her friends. In all seriousness, Grace plans to apply for internships at publishing companies, as well as do some more research on graduate schools. She's also looking to travel abroad again, but is open to whatever opportunity presents itself. Please join me in welcoming Grace.
Yay!
So today I will be reading an excerpt from a short story fiction that I wrote. I believe it was sophomore year. So it's not in the chapbook, but yeah. There are cuss words, I believe. So just a little warning. Angel threw together an impromptu sorry, I forgot to say what this is about. This is The Reluctant Bridesmaid, and basically this is a story about a best friend who's attending her best friend's wedding. She's a bridesmaid, but she doesn't really like the groom. She actually kind of hates him. So she's trying to get back at him. You know, she doesn't want this whole wedding to happen. But basically that's where that leaves us. Angel threw together an impromptu engagement party at an outdoor bar for everyone that happened to be in town that evening. She told me on the way from the airport that Malik had called everyone back home to let them know about his plans. He even flew back to Georgia to ask for her dad's blessing for hand in marriage. She says he's traditional like that. Personally, I don't think there's anything traditional about the way he handles things, but that bit of information is for me. I do my rounds of saying hello to faces I haven't seen in ages, making sure to maintain my pristine image as an elected bridesmaid. Iris, the maid of honor, comes to tell me about the latest crazy thing that's happened to her. This week's edition includes a druggie using a corkscrew as a weapon against a Target employee while she was buying tampons. I chat with Angel's parents and my old roommate, trying my best to avoid any topics that have to do with him. Although I wish it were my superpower, I know that I cannot ignore his looming presence forever. Downing the last bit of whatever searing liquid I'd randomly ordered from the bar, I perk up my shoulders and plaster on a smile as I make my way over to the engaged couple. Congrats, you two! I encase Angel in a tight hug, squeezing her as if we hadn't spent the last couple of hours talking each other's ears off. When releasing her, I briefly look over at Malik, giving him a tight-lipped smile before turning back to my bestie. I barely get a word in when I feel his finger timidly tap me on the shoulder. If turning back towards him, it takes the power of God for me not to roll my eyes. Yes, Malik? How have you been, Whitney? I'm not going to beat a dead horse, although I could. Ranting about this whole thing has been my most consuming activity since I started this trip, and while it's exhilarating, it's also exhausting. So for now, I'll put the beast mode to rest. I'm doing well. How are you? I'm great. His smile is sincere, and I can tell he's trying to soften the air around us. I'm even better ever since my guardian angel here said yes. Guardian angel? Gross. Yeah, she's always looking out for me, even after the breakup. She was there for me, and I could come to her when I was having a tough time. She never let me down. I can see why everyone loves her so much, and I'm lucky enough that she's allowing me to be one of those people. My eye twitches. My tongue swipes against my canine, and my hands clutch my purse too fervently. Angel gazes at him in awe, her small hand coming up to rub his arm, and my eyes are drawn toward the action. I didn't drink enough alcohol for this. Great, fantastic, you're a lucky guy. See you tomorrow at brunch. I beeline for the bar, suddenly interested in a tonic and 2 shots of vodka. I feel a hand caress my wrist, and I have to refrain from jumping out of my dress and skin suit. Whipping around, I see Giddy Angel, her eyes in competition with the smile on her face, who can appear the biggest. So, I drawl while signaling to the bartender. I know what she's getting at, but I would rather drink molten lava before I say a word about it. The bartender places my drink in front of me. This might do it. Isn't he great? I mean, I know you can't tell much from the conversation, but what did you think? He seems, I choose my words carefully, genuine. That much I'll give him. I could tell that he cared for her more than he might have shown at times, but it seemed tonight he wanted everyone to know. I wonder why. See, I told you he's changed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still have some time before we have a verdict. Angel's smile falls, her hand habitually reaching out to take my drink from my hand and take a sip. She coughs and shakes her head, her nose scrunching up at the potent liquid. So you still hate him? Yes. No, this is what you want, and I'm happy for you. But, I don't know, Angel. You know what I think about all that happened. You know where I stand with things. I'm not being stupid. You don't get it. I've made this man work to get back my affection. Angel crosses her arms, throwing back her shoulders and a little to create a barrier against my words. I didn't say you were being stupid. I'm saying that you could have done better than this one. Oh shit. I didn't mean to say that out loud. No. Why do you do that? Angel scoffs. She rolls her eyes, oscillating her weight from one foot to the other. You always talk to me condescendingly, as if I'm some kind of child who doesn't know any better. I notice the way her arms guard her chest from any other hurtful words I decide to spew her way. Her eyes finding solace in something other than my face. She's getting defensive, the way she does when she wants to prove to the other person and herself that she's right. She has to convince herself because people like me don't let her think for herself. We make the decisions for her, and this is a clear example of why. Well, if you'd stop making decisions like this one, maybe you'd actually catch a break. I wanted to get through the evening for her, to make it seem like everything was fine for her, But now, all I wanted to do is rage. You're such a bitch, you know that? You're always so caught up in having to prove that you're fucking right to the point where you don't care who you hurt. Angel points an accusatory finger at her shoulders, keeping time with her rapid breathing as she speeds at me. And how many times has that brazen honesty saved your ass? Everyone at the party has gone silent, too enraptured in what's playing out before them as two best friends scream to the top of their lungs at each other. It's all I can do not to seem like a mad woman is reach for them to mind their own business. Get over yourself. You're anything but perfect, so stop acting like you're a god. If anything, you're the most pathetic person here. Her words sober me up from any alcohol left in my body. I'm trying to look out for her, but clearly she doesn't want it. Because I'm not the one with the ring on my finger? No. Her brows furrow for a second, as if she knows she'll regret what she's about to say. But we're too far gone to be considerate about our words anymore. Because everyone else knows how to be adults. We know how to move on and accept life for what it is. But you, all you've ever done is bring down everyone with you because you hate to see them having a good time when you're not. Angel storms away, her cropped chestnut hair whipping angrily against the sudden nippy night air. My fury would have been enough to keep me warm if it wasn't for the guilt churning at the base of my stomach, sending chills along my spine and forearms. I don't make eye contact with anyone as I make my way through the crowd and away from the scowling faces. On the outside, I know I look like the bitch Angel just described, someone who always has to be right, even if I made a fool out of the other person. At this point, I'm the most hated person here, even more so than Whitney. I'm about to turn the corner onto a dim street when Malik catches up to me. He pushes his hair from the front of his face, puffing out his untucked shirt to allow airflow. Honestly, he looks as if he just got into a fight with a bunch of stray cats. This is the man she wanted? We need to talk.
Our next reader is Caroline Lord. Caroline is a creative writing and studio arts double major from Fitzgerald, Georgia, a town that boasts the world's largest chicken statue.
Yeah!
She loves writing about the ways her faith intertwines with experiences and the personality of the places and people encountered in the day-to-day. After graduation, Caroline is excited about becoming a first-time aunt, completing more painting commissions, and after gaining more perspective through varied job experience, pursuing a career in art therapy. She hopes to keep writing as an integral part of her life and continue pursuing publication. Please welcome Caroline.
Who also just got published 3 separate times.
Alright, so today I'm going to read a poem. I wrote this a couple semesters ago for my cousin Ethan who passed away. So this is called Last Words. It was a couple years before silly bands went in, when he and I would swing in the backyard on a playset that was in desperate need of a dose of WD-40. We were always plotting, Ethan and I, the self-proclaimed king and queen of the Cousins Club, until everyone got fed up with our bossiness and called for democracy. We would gather between Grandpa's shed and the shrubs, creating crowns from grapevines, sneaking sweets in our pockets, for some regal cookie mud pie feast with porcelain flower pot dishes. I recall rioting when Grandpa cut down the shrubs, and how he voted to relocate to some other bush, though it was never quite the same. We would tote Becca and Grace around like rag dolls and call them princesses so they would want to play our game. We all loved to sprawl out on carpet floors with collections of coins and rocks, trading our childish treasures after a day spent rolling down hills under firefly-speckled skies, playing manhunt, dressed in camouflage, taking the game way too seriously, and never taking Thanksgiving, seriously enough, when it got to Ethan's turn to share what he was grateful for. Because everything he said was funny, just because it was him that said it. When I think of those days, I have to squint to remember, because there are only tiny pieces in my mind. Parts of it could have been invented by my imagination, reading between the lines. And I hate how I'm not sure. I hate how I question the moments we shared when he was still alive, but remember losing him so vividly. I remember every minute of blind hope, eyeing a black dress in my closet, but refusing to bring it with me. And the elevator door opening on the 3rd floor, the old and young holding each other, afraid to let go. My heart ringing with words I didn't get to say to him, words like how I loved him, even if I didn't say it that often. And how I never wanted to be any more than 9 days older. Never wanted to grow up without him just being a couple days behind me. I couldn't choke back the tears, just let them flow out like a song that I'll never sing long enough. And I'll never forget the prayer like a eulogy prayed as we sat around his bed on the floor. A prayer prayed knowing that there wouldn't be a miracle, not for us at least. And I've tried to eulogize him time and time again. I try to find peace in his heart and lungs, and the way that to Ethan, being a donor was an easy choice, because he knew he wouldn't need his big heart anymore. I'll never forget the gold in the sunset while 100 voices lifted like a paradox, praising God as he died. Sirens echoing in a kaleidoscope of blue and red, a flag waving with the words, "Donate life." The hope he gave, just like Superman, born to be strong, born to die, and born to live more in 20 years than most people manage in 100. And I believe, and have been told, that some broken hearts won't heal on this side of heaven. Some things will never make sense. So I've been grasping on to every memory, imagining him with Jesus, and when I do, he's smiling without fear of anything, or any sort of inhibitions. And though the dead can't talk back to me with words, in every sunset, where the clouds' edges are gilded in light, I think of singing hymns with Ethan a couple days before he left. And the night of the accident, being struck with heaviness, though at the time I didn't know why, of living in a world I didn't love anymore, if I ever had. That's when I listened to a hymn about going home. His voice, faint in a congregation, now sings so boldly to his Jesus. And that night in the hospital, God knows how our voices shook the building, with hope in every shaking breath, a song that I'll never sing long enough or loud enough. My last words to my friend from youth. Tell him when you see his face, I want to see him too.
Maria, Andrea, Yvonne, Calvis. A creative writing and marketing dominator. She became a pastatarian while studying abroad in Italy and recently re-injured her hip while learning K-pop dances during her class trip to South Korea. She started the business called Soul of Mango, Soul is spelled S-O-L, during her last semester at Berry, and intends on strengthening this business while juggling a marketing job in Atlanta.
Yeah!
To round out her entrepreneurial prowess. Wedged in the midst of these endeavors, Maria Andrea is hoping to at some point escape the States again by teaching English abroad.
I brought my laptop because there's nothing that shows anxiety more than holding a piece of paper, and unfortunately, my eyes haven't worked since kindergarten, so I need something bigger. The first poem is called La Jaula de la Corazón, and it should be on the chapbook.
Page 22.
Thanks, babe.
Dependency yearns to forgive, giving way to addiction, side effect, fixation, compulsion, even after liberating, silent screaming, mockery of eating, the farce of sleeping, for it's easily slipping into the old rearing rumble. Addiction, side effect, leads to thick cuts, trees in their magnitude and delicadeza, scattered around the cuerpo. The pulmones are rigid, branches parting in lisps, the gasps released against the brillo of respiración, the bark scraping the husk to free the smoldered restraint within. Like a chain smoker to the aged cigar, tu desperdiciado tu merecerá. No patch can fix the internal torrential rivers, sudor frothing forth from the incessant, the corazón. The perdition of small crescents, these nails piercing the fallible skin, fault line of razón, dribbling, muriendo, la corazón, un color, casi rosa, no longer dark enough to be classified as roja. The next poem was published in Ramifications.
Yeah!
I wonder what chiropractor Atlas goes to. He must go to one after carrying the world on the tips of his shoulder blades. Such a weight must have been bad for his back. Do the melting ice caps and homeless penguins cause the world to cry? Oceans spilling salted droplets stained with the ink of gasoline onto his back. What type of milk does he have to drink to keep those sleepy bones from pulverizing? Does he take fish oil supplements to ease the pressure off his thinning cartilages? Like the imprints of does the world reek as landfills encroach upon the Earth's surface? Does the world leave creases like the imprints of wrinkled cheeks on cheeks after sleeping? Does he feel the world growing heavier with every birth, the heft of every death? Is arthritis something he has to contend with amongst every other inconvenience of the world? Does he wrinkle his nose at the scent of fireworks, cigarettes, and lavender candles? What supplements does he take to keep his sanity day in, day out? Does he wish he could scream sense into the leeching parasites, pluck and prune them one by one with the nails of his fingertips? What chiropractor does Atlas go to? Does he contemplate the world's expiration date? Is he relieved it's coming soon? The next poem is also published in Ramifications, the edition before that one.
Yeah!
I never can make it to Ramstein because I always have classes, so this is me like catching up on readings. I miss you like I miss my old pink jacket. With a ketchup stain on the sleeve, even though I hate ketchup. I miss you like I miss playing outside during recess, during the autumn sneeze, sucking on pesticide-filled honeysuckles, and scraping the scent of worn metal off my blisters. I miss you, even though I know you are the mitten mismatched to my glove. We can no longer fake a fit. One size did not fix all. As you hang around your circle, and I tiptoe along the borders, watching you from my rearview mirror, I see your eyes catching, chasing after the breeze I leave, refracting our memories, fuzzy with neglect. Our strings of fate are too entwined for me not to notice your rigid spine, the pause breath, too intertwined for you not to notice my misstep. I knew you once, like I knew my favorite purple princess shoes, creases, laces, and all 3 gems missing on the left heel. I miss you like I miss my old nightmares, those that would inspire stories of heroes and dragons and romanticized helplessness. Except now I miss you like 2 shots of nostalgia, a harsh buzz turning my stomach empty until all that's left is the promise of closeness vibrating between us. A missed chord on the plastic guitar, because our strings can never snap, even with the distance of missing. The next 2 poems are super short, and I wrote them today because I hated my other poems.
Period.
Valiant says that in my story, I'm the hero. Lore has it that I'm the one who defeated the villain after falling prey to the traitor. That betrayer with obvious malice and conniving schemes. Lore says I'm the hero, bringing home jewels and tales to the starved people of my town, regaling them with my wit, integrity, and tenacity. But what am I supposed to tell my people when they're celebrating my sugar-spun tales? When I hear them celebrate my undeniable morality, defeat against mortality? Not when I was the villain after all. Hope is the thing with thorns. I mean feathers, or so all the poems say. And who am I to refute poetry? Fear is fickle, a fickle creature, anxious of the outdoors, and once it finds solace in your silence, it renders you its host. Endearing mother. Funny correlation, that of hope and fear, because I've never felt as much fear as I did in the presence of your feathered hope.
Our next reader is Dylan Roberts.
Yeah.
Dylan is graduating with a creative writing major and a minor in history. Even before coming to Barry, he began developing a fantasy world. And while here, he has written several short stories and poems to help its development. Currently, Dylan is working on a series of fantasy novels based off this world, which he hopes to publish in the next 2 to 3 years. In the meantime, he plans to work in the history sector within Savannah and continue to develop the world his writings are based in. Please join me in welcoming Dylan.
Thank you. What I'm reading is actually the first few pages of prologue of my first book, and thanks to a number of the other students who actually helped this past semester with editing it. A farewell. The Lord lay dying. It was the better part of the year coming. It had begun with a barely noticeable cough, and by winter he was completely bedridden. Physicians and mages had been called from across the Sarnian kingdom and beyond, bringing with them all sorts of herbs and medicines. Sage and hemp root had been applied, incense burned, prayers were made in every chapel across the Duchy of Tiberia and any beyond. Nothing worked. The Count of Dukes had continued to worsen, and to his personal physician confirmed that morning that the Lord Thomas would for sure die that day, and the Lady Melinda ordered all his retinue present. The room was dimly lit by a large window of pristine Macedonic glass facing toward the east, so that the Lord would wake with the sun. Today, however, it was dimmed by the gray clouds of March, as if the sky itself was mourning. The Lord's eyes lay half open, staring aimlessly towards the wooden roof. His mouth was a slight gap, wheezing with every breath, with an occasional cough, spitting up blood. The gaunt, pale skin of his face was covered in a short, unkept beard that did not dignify his lordship, and on his forehead a damp cloth had been placed to quell his fever. Below that, at only the top of his chest stuck out above a red wool blanket, which was covered by a tunic of elaborately woven arachne silk, a fine gift from his brother-in-law. The Lady Melinda ordered he be dressed in for death. The chamber itself was half filled with men, and would have likely been even more full if most of the seniors and village elders had returned home to oversee the spring sowing. Those who could attend did, cluttered into the room or outside if they could not stomach a watching and waiting. There were the chevaliers, the chevaliers and bannerets trained to ride strong horses into battle, each with a sword or they had sworn to their liege. They stood beside bailiffs in fine civil clothing, the similarly clothed landowning seniors, more richly dressed merchants, and the plainer clothing of household servants. The Archdeacon Reme stood at the head of several green-robed priests and monks. Among many, warrior and courtier alike, whispers had filled the room, wondering the fate of the county which their lord ordered passing. At the beds itself were the eating officials and the family of the count. First among them was Lady Melinda, dressed all in black with a veil pulled over her head, who was kneeling beside the bed, gently stroking the hand of her husband. Beside her was the Lord's young son, Elias, who was no more than 14. He was looking at his father with a mix of pain and fear, his face already marked by tears. 3 other men stood at the other side. First amongst them, the personal physician of the Lord, slouched over holding a bowl of greenish paste, a concoction that served just to ease the remaining pain. Near the foot of was the castle's chaplain, who was praying, having already administered the last rites of his Lord. Both men held their heads bowed to avoid any gaze from the lady on them. Yet from the back of the room, the youngest chevalier, Erith, focused on the 3rd man at the bedside. The castle's castellan stood just out of the dim light of the window, leaning against the iron bedpost. He was dressed in a graying cloak, which contrasted with his own gaunt appearance, both hanging over his tunic that carried the faded crest of his lord, and his left arm rested on his sword hilt with a leather glove. The castellan, snake-hearted man named Belrust, was doing well in holding a straight face. Eric knew better, though. The castellan had been waiting months for the lord to die. Squinting, Eric was even certain he could see Belrust's mouth twitch, attempting to hold back, giving even the slightest grin. The vulture disgusted him. Nerith had to turn away the grin, letting it show during this moment. He focused instead on the window above. I noticed a blackbird, perhaps a falcon, lying down in front of the glass window and disappearing. A large croaking sound redirected Eric back to his bedridden liege. As the Lady Melinda leaned in towards him, Lord Thomas turned towards her and moved the back of his hand beside his wife's veiled cheek. He seemed to try and say something, but only a dry, wordless whisper escaped before suddenly turning back to the ceiling and lowering his hand. The whole room stood still, watching as the physician cautiously moved his finger up to the count's neck and gave a weary sigh. The man turned towards the rest of the gathered retinue, announcing what everyone already knew. "It is over," he stated solemnly. "So passes the Lord Thomas de Erbrust, Count de Breaux. May his years of peace and prosperity remain beyond his passing." Behind the physician, Eric was certain he could finally see Belrust's mouth grin.
Next reader is Chloe Spector.
Yeah!
Chloe is a creative writing and English double major with a passion for fantasy and horror. She's hoping to attend graduate school in the UK for a degree in the conservation of historical artifacts and is working on putting the finishing touches on her first novel. She also creates visual art and has a collection of oddities that she will talk about at length given the opportunity. Please welcome Chloe.
Hello, thank you. I do feel like I'm obligated to say only part of that statement is true now. I am not going to graduate school in the UK, but that is for another time. I'm reading an excerpt of the excerpt featured in the chapbook today. It's from a novel I'm working on called Sir Penny and the Dragon. Yes. Sir Penny was certain this was all a cruel joke. He'd been on this adventure for almost 4 weeks now, and he still couldn't properly secure his pauldrons to his shoulders. They kept inching down to his elbows. All the armor was a problem, actually. It was heavy, there was too damn much of it, and he claimed like a bunch of marbles and a lead pipe. He should have left it all on the ground where he'd made camp the previous night. It certainly wasn't helping him slog up this hill. Sir Penny cursed the King of Vardia as his boots slipped in the mud, sending his left knee and hands into the dirt again as he caught himself. The helmet tied to his hip swung and ran into his thigh, almost knocking him down all the way. His knighthood was definitely a joke. Oh yes, let's send the baker's nephew out to kill the dragon and fetch that damnable goblet. He'll come back if he comes back, roasted and humiliated, and we, the court, will get a hearty chuckle out of it. No need to give him a horse. Oh, and Penny, don't forget your glasses on your way out. You know you can't see without them. Bastards. He had only extinguished a fire in the market, nothing befitting the honor or punishment of knighthood. Those very same glasses slid down his nose, slick with sweat, and fell into the mud. The world was suddenly very blurry. Huffing, red-faced, Sir Penny retrieved the round lenses by the light reflecting off the glass and searched around for a bit of cloth to clean them on. He found something plush hanging down near his shin and began to wipe the dirt away, but the cloth meowed loudly in protest and batted at his hand with a blurry paw. Sir Penny shoved the glasses back on his face to glare properly at the large gray cat winding between his ankles as he tried to regain his footing. I should have locked you in your mother's barn. The cat raised its magnificent feathery tail and trotted on up the hill. MacGuffin had been foisted upon him like a lingering bad smell by an old woman from a border town that he had passed through on his way into the wilds. The wiry, bug-eyed woman had told him that a journey of this caliber required a helpful companion. So far, the cat had only tripped him, laying on his throat through the night, and spat up a hairball on his bedroll. The little nuisance plopped its furry behind on a small outcropping of rock to watch Penny struggle. Its yellow eyes peered from its squashy face like a pair of baleful lanterns. Sir Penny finally gave into the incline and dug his hands and boots into the mud, scrambling up on all fours like an animal. His glasses were still heavily smudged and he had to squint to see through the remaining dirt. At least the court of Vardia couldn't see him here. They'd be rolling with laughter on their well-dressed backs in the dirt while key members prodded him with their walking sticks. The thought brought the cloying smell of bitter red wine to mind, and Penny quickly sucked in a deep breath of clean air to clear the memory. The rocky hillside sloped down to a small valley before rising into a rolling moor smattered with purple swaths of heather. It was a gray day, misty but not raining, and the brilliant green of the hills almost seemed to glow against the gloom. The ruin on the top of the hill had crumbled to a single, unassuming stone tower. The base of the tower was snarled with clumps of brambles, and the ruined parapets looked ready to topple over from the weight of the ivy hanging from them. Penny was going to die up there. Eventually, the incline began to level out, and Penny was able to haul himself upright with a raucous clanking. The world swam around him as he tried to catch his breath, his glasses trying to break free again. His leg muscles burned and shook a little. MacGuffin glanced ahead towards the tower and Penny's imminent demise. He thought the cat looked far too happy about the prospect. When his vision stabilized, Penny dropped his pack and shoved his helmet on his head, squashing his glasses painfully against his face. He reached for the long sword on his hip. He had to shake it a few times to get it loose. Raising the sword to be level with his hip, Penny began his march towards the Dragon's Keep with a determination only the damned could possess. The inside of the ruined tower looked like the inside of a ruined tower. Dead leaves littered the packed floor in banks, and water dripped from somewhere with a soft plunk, plunk. A few shafts of light bled in from the ruined roof, casting the edges of the circular room into darkness. A sapling had long ago sprouted on the inside of the tower, and in the intervening years it had curled in upon itself and forced through the stone walls into the sunlight. It looked rather menacing to Penny, but he refused to be scared of a tree. The tower was silent, except for the softly dripping water and the rustling of the ivy above as wind played over the moors. No golden grail anywhere in sight. No dragon either, though, so that was a positive. Penny hesitantly lowered his sword, his heart hammering painfully in his chest as his eyes flickered around the small space. If nothing else, he was likely to drop dead of fear at any moment. At least he wasn't going to be eaten. The dragon arrived in a rush of magic that made the world warp and tilt like Penny had tried to summon another hill. The momentary comfort Sir Penny had felt upon finding the tower empty ran out through his feet, and he staggered back, flailing his sword as he lunged for the doorway. MacGuffin hissed, back arching and tail pluming before darting after him. The door was gone, nothing but a stone wall remained. Shadows and light swirled like smoke against the walls, and a horrible, deafening screech rang from every direction. Sir Penny spun about, but he couldn't find anything to target. So kind of your king to send me a new plaything. The deep voice pulsed out of the swirling smoke like it emanated from a deep well. Penny scrabbled at the stone walls like he could claw them away, dropping his sword in his panic. His screams lodged in his throat just behind the pleas for mercy and frantic curses. An unseen paw tore him from the wall, flinging him into the air as if he weighed nothing. The paw clenched around his leg before he could hit the ground, the points of sharp claws digging between the gaps in his armor. The claws threw him to the ground, and Penny heard his glasses crack as his face hit the dirt. He scrambled on his hands and knees, looking for anywhere to hide. A column of smoke broke away and collapsed in the center of the room. The smoke vanished in a flash of light, coalescing into the form of a tall woman clad in a flowing white dress. Slit-pupiled silver eyes examined him from a statuesque ebony face. Her hair shimmered like white light. It floated ethereally around her face and head. The edges of her seemed to dissolve into shadow. Sir Penny withered under the weight of her gaze, shaking so badly he could barely hold himself up on his knees. He felt rooted to the spot. The cat had vanished. The silence had returned to the tower, the beams of light filtering back in through the holes in the roof. The dragon's reptilian eyes landed on his fallen sword and narrowed imperceptibly before returning to him. You are not the usual sort.
Yay!
Our last reader, Meredith, also known as Stafford or Meredith Prime, is a creative writing and German double major whose ultimate goal in life is to live in the woods with 15 cats.
Yeah!
When not actively stressing about something inconsequential, they're probably writing poetry, playing the flute, watching horror movies way too late at night, or taking long walks to admire mossy logs.
Yeah.
Following graduation, she'll be keeping busy doing whatever pays the bills while running her small art business. They hope to attend an MFA program within the next couple of years. Please join me in welcoming Meredith.
Thank you for that. I have 3 poems for y'all. They're in the chat book if you would also like to read along. This first one is called Before the Road Back. Nap-bloated sunset, drunken spill of the Gulf moved inland. Water laps at the dock like a sleepy hound with a full belly. Fishing boats doze across its back, slip into the horizon, bright as polished oyster shells. Sticky with coastline, my lover and I split ice cream across the river, spoons digging like cupped palms into soft-serve vanilla. Before their spawning rivers were dammed and gnawed bones, Atlantic sturgeon ran furrowed bodies up this fresh water after a life in the salt. When the water turned to gunpowder, it starved of sturgeon. A river is a prodigal child. I'm an estuary, racing between home and the open sea. Up the river, a currentless flush of marsh, wild reeds still as steeples. I'll return, chisel myself into the space my child body left, thirsting for salt. And always the ocean at my back, a girl's warm, wanting hands, sea glass voice. Night comes, like a kid on a swing, grasping for soft handfuls of moon, legs kicking down, down, into air. We're sprigs, tender as throats, reaching for stillness. next one is entitled My Liturgy. Lungs like orange slices, juiced pearls rebirth melodies in my veins. The metamorphosis becomes me. Cells within skin, cosmos singing me into being, a mimicry from silken, algae-spotted nebulas. Who am I, if not the stars? Powdered to fine grains of gold or silt, like love letters left from the ocean's teething brine to the soft mouths of rivers. Even the sun is still hydrogen and helium, a peeled fruit eating itself until it's no longer the arched skin heretic astronomers bathed under. I believe the universe is a blue whale, and we float deep in the arched cathedral of its stomach like God could be anything different. We create and are created, swallowed and spit out into new form, weaving atoms into tapestries like a daguerreotype sharpening into a blade to sculpt constellations to bodies, scatter genes to galaxies. And I have one last one for you, and it is called Butcher. I'm glad you're excited. Butcher. The meat separates neatly underhand. Raw flesh still slick below knife, weeping. Created to destroy, I am the image of my Father. Mud-water eyes, wide-veined hands, the tautness we carry in our shoulders that tangles us in ourselves. My Father never learned to fend for himself without the blood spatters. He cuts like gnawing, weight in each swing slaughtering the animal whole again, leaving rough tendons with tender flesh. I could have been born a son, too like him to be a daughter. His voice hums with the sting of a cleaver, weaponized fear pooling since youth, father bred, the ghost that dogs him with a bourbon-thick Georgian drawl. Slicing ravines of meat, each strip cries rivulets under his fingertips. Blunt in my girlhood, I grew like a river whittling canyons, unsure of my strength. His reflection stares back as I snake a necktie around my collar. Feel the tug to carve the earth around me, let my wounds scab to anger. The whole erodes into chasms, into chunks, to grind, into pulp. He cannot love without the urge to lacerate instead of understand, to gut instead of embrace. We are butchers, I the same as him. I am hungry like a boy, lean with want, a rabbit forced to hunt like a wolf. Butch in my ache, I yearn to still the blade, turn the severing of self into an act of creation, to form myself from my own hands instead of his.
Can we please have a round of applause for all of the readers? A couple of things. One, housekeeping. If you see any food or drink you want, please take it. Or napkins or paper plates. Maybe leave the chairs. I want to say, and I think the rest of the faculty will agree, it has been a privilege to be your professor, your colleague, your co-writers. This was an amazing reading. I think we can all agree. Thank you guys for being here. Please keep doing what you are doing, and also don't forget us. Let us know, share your accomplishments, hell, share your failures. You know me, I love rejection, it's one of my favorite things. Don't forget us, we will not forget you. Thank you for being here, for real. Thank you everybody for coming. We will be taking pictures. I know it's lame, but it's only because we love you. Parents, if you want us to stick around, let us know. But that's it, thank you